Welcome to another video of Performance with Project. Do you like change? Well, as you're probably aware, project change is inevitable. It comes at you like the waves of the sea. But the good news is that Microsoft Project has a number of features that can help us cope with change. And in this video, we're going to look at how change can be managed through the various ways in which tasks can be linked and unlinked in the context of a changing project environment. We'll also look at the inactivate function and how this can help, and how tasks can be split if we experience an unexpected interruption to our project. And then finally, we'll look at a rather useful feature in recurring tasks. Recurring tasks, whether it be in the context of a workforce plan or in that of a recurring project task. So let's get into it. So the linking and unlinking of tasks. We've already covered this in a previous video. In fact, we looked at this in video 2, which dealt with how we can get a project off the ground. But in this context, we'll look at the ways in which this function can help if we need to make adjustments to a changing project. And first of all, the easy way to perhaps look at changing linkages within our project is by selecting the task that we want to, perhaps in this case, unlink. You can go click, hold the control button down for the second task there, and then go up to the task ribbon and then click unlink those tasks, and it will do that for you. And of course, if you want to choose a new task to link, you can simply click the task that you want to link to another task, and also by holding the control button down on your keyboard, select the second task that needs to be linked, and then go in and click it, the chain icon, and there you can see those tasks are now linked as per our requirements. Now there are the keyboard shortcuts. You can go Control F2 to link, and you can also go Control Shift F2 to unlink. You might find those useful. Now, what happens if we realize that in this particular case that the obtaining of permits and permissions is really the only prerequisite for a number of tasks within the project schedule? So say, for example, all of these tasks, row 7 to row 10, has just the one prerequisite, and that is obtain necessary permissions in row 6. Well, what you can simply do is obviously click on row 6 for predecessors, and then use the drag function here, and you can see your cursor will now change to a fine little cross, and then drag that down, and then you can see all of a sudden those tasks are now linked to have the one prerequisite at the top of your project schedule there. So that's quite a useful little trick if you need to have a number of tasks with the same prerequisite. Another method that can be used also is by jumping into the project task detail. So you click on the task that you want to look at the prerequisites, double click, and dialog box with task information will arrive, and then you can also look at options there in which you'd like to change your prerequisite. So that's another method. It's a slightly longer method than compared to the previous two, but it's certainly available at your disposal if you wish. Another method in linking and unlinking is a manual method. So say, for example, we jump onto the Gantt chart here, and then we say, for instance, we want to link this particular task, which is row 7, with a further task down the schedule, perhaps row 15. We want to link those together. Well, you can actually manually select and drag your mouse, and notice you'll see a little chain insignia with a line coming from the task there, and you can drag that into task, we said task 15, and you'll see the little sign that comes up, finish to start link from finish of task 7 to start of task 15. Then you release the mouse, and then you can see that those tasks are now linked. So that's another quick and easy method that you can use if you prefer. So in summary, you can use the buttons on the taskbar to unlink and link. You have the keyboard commands, you have adjustments. If you're showing your predecessor column, you can make adjustments in there. You can launch into task information box, or you can simply manually adjust tasks through the Gantt chart, and those methods are at your disposal. So hopefully this makes it easier to link and unlink various tasks within your project schedule. Now, what do you do if you've been given a directive from your project board or executive that a particular part of your project is no longer required? Well, for example, we might feel that this particular job here, organise food and drink contributions from residents, this task 19 is no longer required. Now, we could simply get in there and delete that and it will all be removed, but also a lot of the work that we've done in the background also gets deleted as well. For example, the estimated time that you put in, the resources, the prerequisites, the time frame, all get deleted along with it. And what happens if someone changes their mind and then you realize that we really needed that task there in the first place? A useful function is the inactivate function. And what you can simply do is click inactivate, and you'll notice it's not completely removed from the visuals, but it is actually removed with regards to the resource and the time frame. For example, I've just chosen a task that doesn't sit on the critical path, so generally nothing has changed in the overall time frame apart from the actual task. But for example, if we realize that this particular role here, this particular activity here in row 14 was no longer required, and I click inactivate, all of a sudden the critical path is shortened because that extra step in the critical path is gone, but the information is retained should you need that later on down the track. So say for example, this assigned specific roles and responsibilities, it was removed, and now someone has decided to change their mind again and say that it's now required. Well, then you click the inactivate button again and it is reactivated. So that's quite a useful little tool that you can help to manage tasks without deleting information that you may regret later on in your project. Now, you'll probably agree that if you do this for a number of tasks within your Gantt chart, so say for example we're doing that now, inactivate, the Gantt chart itself can get a bit ugly, a little bit messy. There's a lot of things going on there that aren't actually required in the overall scheme of things, but it still takes up real estate, or in other words, still takes up room on your project schedule. So what's a way that we can hopefully tidy this up and only highlight the tasks that we want to show off to our project team, or indeed the project board in this particular case? Well, a useful way to get around this is by establishing a new view to not delete the activated tasks, but to effectively filter them out in a different filtered view. I'll show you how this is done. You go to the top left-hand part of your workspace, of your screen. You can see Gantt chart. Drag that down, or click that, and you'll see that there is more views shown here. So click more views, and you'll be given this more views dialog box here. And you want to create a new view that can just filter out inactivated tasks or any other tasks that you may not want shown on your particular printed view here. So you're going to want to click single view and then click OK. And in this particular case, we'll call this clean view. There you go, clean view. And in table, select entry, the group, select no group, and in filter, this is the important part here, we want active tasks. We want to disengage or filter out those inactive tasks in our Gantt chart. Now if we click OK and we go apply, notice what you've got here. You've got a reasonably nice and clean sheet. Inactivated views have been filtered out, and this could be a useful sheet that you might like to show to your project team or project board to keep them updated. Now, if you want to go back to your real worksheet with everything on it, simply go back to Gantt chart, and you can see you can continue to make adjustments here and inactivate or activate tasks, and then you get the best of both worlds. Now, the other area we're going to look at is splitting tasks. What might call for splitting tasks to be required? Well, you might be given interruption of some sort. You might be waiting on a contract to be signed, and it's taken a lot longer, so you have to drag out certain tasks, but effectively make sure that no work is being done during that particular time. For example, we have this task here, task 38. It goes for about 20 days. Now we'll just zoom in a little bit. And we might be given a scenario where, and we'll assign a resource to this particular task. We'll assign John. Now, John may need an unexpected week off. So how do we represent this on our project schedule? So what you're going to need to do is go to your task ribbon and then select split task. And you notice your cursor changes and a box comes up here highlighting where you want to schedule this start split. So we might highlight the scheduled start as 15th of September. Now click your mouse and hold it down, and then move to when you want to renew or reintroduce the task. So we might say we'll move it to give John close to a month off. So 6th of the 10th, 8th of the 10th, 10th of the 10th, 12th, the 14th. We might stick to the 14th. And then release. And there you have it. You have now a break or a split in that task. So John is no longer activated in that task. Now, how can we check that to make sure that that's been correct? Well, we can go up to our different views and go to your resource usage. And let's just see what we've got here. So John, rightio, we're going to scroll along to find where he was assigned that task. You'll notice here that he started the task in the week beginning the 9th of September, but the week beginning the 16th of September, when we had that break, you can see 0 hours have been shown there, and it's pretty much that way for a month until we recommence or reintroduce that task into the 14th of October. So I'm sure you'll agree it's a very powerful tool that can be excellent for balancing resources and for showing a true view as to what goes on when you have unexpected interruptions in your project. Now, the other useful tool that we can use to manage and somewhat modify our projects is to also include recurring tasks. Oftentimes you'll have board meetings or other internal meetings, for example, that take time of the project and should be captured in many cases in terms of our time required by contractors or the resources we choose to use in the project. So how do we go about highlighting or creating a recurring task, and how is this shown in Microsoft Project? So you'll notice that I've put on here weekly project meeting. So to get that recurring meeting visible on your project schedule, click on the cell underneath, and then on the task ribbon, go to task, and there's a little drop down menu here which shows recurring task, and then simply type in the name of the meeting. So for example, we'll put this as project meeting, and then we'll go and nominate the meeting to occur on every Monday throughout the duration of this project. You'll notice too that it defaults to the end by date of our project. So you can see the 12th of the 11th is the end date, so it automatically defaults to that, which could be convenient for what we want to do. And then click OK. and you'll notice all of our project meetings are listed. Now, some might find this a little tedious, but if you do, simply tidy this up by collapsing the list of meetings, but you'll see that the meetings are still captured on your Gantt chart, and then when you go to apply resources to this, these resources and the time taken for these meetings are also captured. So you might like to just tidy this up a little bit further by outdenting the weekly project meeting so that looks a little more presentable. So no doubt quite a useful mechanism here in Microsoft Project for those ongoing, recurring pieces of information that we need to capture in on our Gantt charts. We hope you found this video useful, and please subscribe. It would be very much appreciated. And please feel free to leave a comment as well. We'd love to hear from you.